You have been called the Oprah of AI. When you saw it 11 years ago, did you have any idea that it would be what it is today?
No, I didn't. I had hopes. I had been working in big data, which was like, we had lots of data, but we didn't have a lot of insight. We actually used to have a terminology that we used at IBM called DRIP, data rich, information poor. And this was kind of a great way to see what types of insight we might be able to do. I remember people like, why would I ever need a website? And so, are there jobs that we're not thinking about? What's the thing that only you can do? That's where I think people need to be focused. There's whole institutions that break down right now. What can you bring? What's your secret sauce?
Message would you have to somebody who feels like, let's say they're 40s to 70s, they feel like the AI thing is happening around them. They think it's for like those business people. What do you say to them?
Yeah, one of the things that I say every time I give a talk is that I don't just want you to participate in this AI revolution, I need you. If we are going to use this to actually uplift humanity, then we need everybody represented. There was a disruption that happened that led to big tech. And so I'm really super interested in who are the next disruptors. There's been a trying to apply old rules to a new paradigm. And when you try to do that, it inevitably blows up and doesn't work. It's going to take a lot of us, and it's going to take us to really push back on big tech.
So, what are you most excited about when it comes to AI?
I'm most excited about.
Kim Carson, how are you?
Good, Arlan. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's so good to see you. I'm so excited about this interview because it is going to be all about AI from the perspective of someone who has been in AI for more than 10 years,
Right.
who represents me. I say that for myself. I am just so excited about this. So, first of all, I want to jump right in because I know this audience really likes to get right to the point pretty quickly.
Sure.
You started with like in 2014 with AI.
Yeah.
What was that? How did you?
Yeah. So I was working in the field of big data analytics, right? So the kind of the precursor to AI, working at IBM, and there was something that some folks on your call might remember called IBM Watson, which was basically research into what we now use every day in terms of the field of AI. So I feel really lucky that I got a chance to start so early in, what was now something that we use every day, the latest and greatest technology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you say you worked with it, what does that mean? You were one of the first people to use it internally, or how did it work?
Yeah, so we actually were, I was tasked with my background is in academics. So I actually had worked prior in universities and with researchers. And so I was asked to actually help stand up a unit within research that was all about education. So not only did I get a chance to work with AI before most people, but I also got a chance to work with AI in terms of social impact with most people. So we actually worked with Title I schools all across the country. For those people that don't know, Title I schools are underserved schools, and our task was to create a companion for teachers in these really impacted classrooms, right? So it was to
In,
aggregate
in
data about
2014?
students, yeah, aggregate data about K-12 students, and actually help customize curriculum for those students to help them get ahead. And so this was really the best way, I feel like, to enter AI because it was not about efficiency. It was not about, productivity. It was about what can we do with this technology that actually can make our world better. And so that's how I started. Yeah, I
Yeah.
started leading the charge in Watson education.
And when you saw that 11 years ago, because it's AI has been around for a long time, it was kind of cloaked in the words of big data. Big
Right.
data. That's how people would come to me with when they wanted something to be invested in with
Yep.
big data. And it was legitimate, but it was like that was the one word and phrase. When you saw it 11 years ago, 10 years ago, when you were like working on it, did you have any idea that it would be what it is today, or was that kind of the point that it would be?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Right. I had hopes, right? Because I got to work in it in the social impact kind of way. I was like, oh, what could we do, not just for education, but for poverty and hunger and like all of this cool stuff, right? Like I had been working in big data, which was like we had lots of data, but we didn't have a
Yeah.
lot of insight. And this was kind of a great way to see what types of insight we might be able to do and what kinds of decision making we could do based on the data, which was so cool for me, and still so cool for me. It's still like the thing I light up most about. Yeah,
I think what you just said is so powerful, not only for the past, but for the present and for the future.
right,
You just said back then, when big data was so big, was such an important thing, we had lots of data, but we didn't have lots of insight.
right.
Then
So
that
we
started to
actually, yeah, we actually, sorry to interrupt you, we used to have a terminology that we used at IBM called DRIP, which was data rich, information poor. And so a system could be a drip system, right? Which meant we had all this tons of data, but we weren't getting any insights out of that data at all.
and it kind of makes me feel like right now, there's a, I mean, we're going to get into so much, but there's such a conversation about like, is AI good for us? Is it a good thing? And maybe it's good for some people and not others. And
Right,
how do you use it? And I just think of that. I think I'm going to think of that every time I'm faced with it. It's like, do we have a lot of tools and a lot of great things at our disposal, but it's lacking substance. It's
right.
lacking the insight that the human can provide.
That's exactly right.
And that this is exciting. Okay, so you did that, and then you went on. I'm sure there was something before this, but I know that you went on to create just an incredible, what would you call it? It was a like an apprenticeship
Yeah, it was, I
program.
call it kind of like a para-academic program, right? So one thing that kind of hit me as I was working in IBM and with the early AI was that we were missing somebody on the team. We had lots of engineers, we had lots of researchers that were thinking about data, but we were missing artistic talent. We were missing creative people. And without the creative people involved, you can't push it to the bounds of where your insight comes from, right? We can't imagine what types of things could be created. And so I created a nonprofit called Parallax Futures that was really about getting artists, all kinds of artists, musicians, creators, all into how do you co-create with AI? How do you use that to actually push your creativity to the next level? And so that's still the area that I play in is working with creators and trying to push everyone, not just the artists, but everyone in terms of their creativity with AI. I think it's such a cool tool to be able to do that. And I know that there's hesitancy, but when you really learn how to use it to drive your own creativity, I think, wow, but this is the future, right? Like this is what we need.
And what's an example of one of the people who you worked with in this this group? Like where did they come in and then how
Yeah.
did they leave?
So they came in mostly from they were postgraduate students. So most of them were doing a doctorate thesis in like I had somebody in photography or somebody working in music that was actually based in his homeland, like Pakistani kind of music. So that was very important to me too, that these were global. It was a global representation of people that were pushing the boundaries. And then we started to look at, what could we do with the AI? How could you prompt? I have a program that I call Prompt Like a Poet.
Mhm.
How do you use prompts in order to drive and push your own creativity? And so that's what they did. Most of them have gone on to other things where they're now like, either building products or they're building art installations or they're working for people who are doing so in a creative capacity, right? And what they learned from us was really just how to use the AI as a collaborator, as a
Yeah, how to marry the two. And that's such
yeah,
a important and timely topic.
yeah,
Because I don't know, I mean, we didn't prep for this conversation, so you got to tell
right.
me if there's anything you don't want to talk about. But when I think about like what's happening with the Timbaland artists, have you seen that? What's
Yes.
there? And I have lots of my wife is a musician and an artist and an actor,
Yep.
and we picketed for the rights against these AI. But I'm so bullish on it. How do you think about that? You were someone who had a very unique experience of working with, I would say, dozens of creatives
Right.
and help them marry this and not make it so scary. What are your thoughts, though, when someone creates an artist?
Yeah. So for me, it's there's like two ways to think about it, right? So I think one way is very much the way of the Creative Commons, right? So that this is not a new thing, right? So there
Mm,
is the ability to opt into Creative Commons as a creator, which is basically an open form where you can share your work. If you've ever used a stock photo, right? Like there's lots of Creative Commons that are involved in that. And so, for one, there's kind of a need to have representation, right, in these things. But I also feel like people need to be compensated and need to be accredited for their work, right? So that's a very personal thing for me. I grew up with a family of artists and dancers and musicians. My grandmother was a vaudevillian, right? And I feel like people need to actually get credit for what they contribute. The other thing that's really interesting is I went to this amazing talk with a digital artist, Android Jones, and it was Android Jones and Sam Altman, and it was their second talk. So their first talk was all about, how this was going to take over all of Android's artistic practice, and he hated it. And the second was really an interesting conversation because in the time between, Android had actually experienced a personal loss where his studio actually caught on fire, one of the big fires, and he needed to get his work back. So he went out into his audience, and because he's a digital artist, he was able to do this. He was able to get his kind of work back in terms of people were like, "Oh yeah, here's the content that you created," and he trained his own model. This is big, right? And I know that this is big for you. This is
yeah,
big,
that's
right? So once he said, all of my issues went away once I could train my own model, and it was my own work that I was tapping into, right? So this is something that I tell creators all the time. Like the first thing should do is have your own GPT, right? That's trained on you,
your
trained
own
on your
custom
work,
GPT.
your stuff, right? Because that's where you're going to get the push into more creative ways of being. um, you can look at the whole of the internet, but meh. Right? I really love my Kim GPT. She's trained on everything I've ever talked about, everything I've ever written.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean that's very. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, we can have conversations about like new things that I'm thinking about in a way that I don't feel like I'm actually taking somebody else's work.
Yeah, everything you said there was so interesting. We could have like an hour conversation about every thread of that. The compensation and the credit. How right now it just seems like there are not enough laws, rules, regulations, guardrails in place from government, from the big corporations. It seems like it's like a playground.
Right.
It's exciting and there's so much good that's coming from it, but it seems like the things that we're just asking for are not there. How do you think we get there? Is that just like a policy thing, enough
Yeah.
conversation?
I think it's a policy thing, but that's only a part of it, right? I think it's I'm a big believer in movements, right? So I think there has to be this groundswell, the picketing that was happening. There has to be like we have to think about things that have never happened before in a way of that's not just top down or not just bottom up. It actually goes from both, from both, from
Yeah,
the top
yeah.
and the bottom at the same time. I think it's unfair to ask legislators to legislate on something new that they don't
Oh.
understand and they don't know about, right? It's I feel like there's been a trying to apply old rules to a new paradigm. And when you try to do that, it inevitably blows up and doesn't work. And so I think there needs to be a lot more people having these conversations. That's where I've always been, is like, hey, if I can create a fellowship, if I can create a workshop, if I can where more and more and more of us are having these conversations about how should can I be attributed? How can I be compensated for this? What rules should exist? Then I think that we may have something. It's going to take a lot of us, and it's going to take us to really push back on big tech. You know,
Does that look like kind of like town halls, gatherings where we then select someone to kind of represent us in the policy? Because
I,
I think of it like
yeah,
the same way other things have made it to law is that you have these representatives, and I keep looking for this word, and maybe you know the term. I was trying to look for it in a different video, and it's basically someone who is who helps to drive policy by being an elected official,
mm,
like not someone with a super high title. I can't think of
mm,
the word, but it's that is what I think we need more of.
yes,
And we need more of them to be representative across race, across gender, across
absolutely,
orientation and belief systems and location.
yeah,
That's what's really also kind of on my mind is we finally are at this place where we can truly say there could be very soon a meritocracy.
yes,
Because if we all have similar tools and we're starting from the same place for the most
absolutely.
part, yeah, so it's like I want to see where I was born, Jackson, Mississippi. I want to see a young girl in Jackson, Mississippi, or a woman who in her 70s or 80s in Jackson, Mississippi,
Right.
build something and be able to not only build it for others, but like you were talking about the custom GPT earlier. Imagine a world where people who are 60 plus, 70 plus can recreate memories in a
Oh,
visual
absolutely.
format.
Absolutely. I have this one project that I'm working on with my mother,
Oh,
where my mother is a creative. She's been a writer her whole life. She did kind of the corporate marketing thing, but she's always been, kind of has this want to tell stories. She's a storyteller. And I'm like, hey mom, how if we did this exercise where I sent you a prompt every day?
hmm.
Where it's either a prompt that's triggering a memory, or maybe you're telling a story to your future ancestors about something that happened with your mother. Like, how would you respond? She goes, "Oh yeah, that's super easy." And I was like, "Okay."
Oh, so
That can,
how are you collecting that? Is that she's putting that into a custom GPT or is she and then
yeah.
you have the information coming back to you?
Yeah, so we did like a joint GPT
Yeah.
created that
Yeah.
that I was at like, okay, I will seed prompts for you.
Oh my gosh. Please
And
make this an actual product. I
right,
would use
I'm
this all day
legacy.
long.
This is a legacy
I
thing.
would make
Legacy
this a
work.
product. I want it to come from you because you told us about it, but I'm going to do this kind of makeshift with my mom.
Yeah,
Because you know what? My mom is 76, and what I've noticed is that in the last, I would say 3 years, she started telling me a lot more about her mom.
yeah,
Even though I grew up with her mom, I knew her for a few years, thankfully. And it's never like she was hiding anything. It's just like these little things.
yes,
Say. And
yeah,
it's very Coco-esque,
yeah.
it's very like the memories are coming flooding in. It's just powerful. Let us know in the comments what ideas AI has given you. Like share it. What have you done with AI that is so exciting that you want other people to know about? Or what is this conversation so far helped spark an idea? Let us know
Yeah.
below in the comments. All
Yeah.
right. So there's like when you talk about what you're working on, what is that? You said you were working on something with the word, I forgot what you called it, Kim's.
Oh, this is Kim's AI Imaginarium. And so,
Imaginarium.
yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately about and people have been asking me to come and speak to them about how they can use AI more creatively, even in like standard business practice. So a great example of this was I was just with some female healthcare execs that are kind of working on femtech and this kind of stuff. And one of the women said to me, "I'm the CEO of a new product company, but I'm a nurse by training. And I use AI, every day pretty much for like research and search and like, how to make things more efficient for myself. But I don't know how to use it in an imaginative way." And I said, why don't you start by asking the AI? This is one of my favorite prompts. And so I give it to all of your audience to tell you a story about a world that you want to see and how your product contributed to that world.
Mm-hmm.
So let's do like an imaginative practice. And it may be completely wrong and it may be completely, hallucinatory and whatever
Yeah,
you want, but it's going to prompt something in you, which is really what we're trying to do. Right? Because you're going to go, no, that's not how I see it. No, da, 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 da. And all of a sudden, you stimulated all of the stuff around your visioning process as a CEO.
absolutely.
And
I have write your own headlines where I talk
yes.
about how I look forward facing. It's kind of, like a vision board type thing. But there was a company that I own most of that I was looking to sell.
Hmm.
And so about a year ago, I put into ChatGPT, and you have just reignited this for me. I put into ChatGPT for the proposal to the buying company.
Yeah.
I could write a headline and an article that's
Yep.
5 years out
Yep.
that describes the world that we live in because this happened.
Yep.
And it was
Exactly.
just magical.
Magical.
And what you're saying is not only that, like people, please do that for your business. You want AI to just test your imagination, but you're saying it seems like it's all coming from a place of creativity, of like magic,
Yeah.
of whimsy,
Yes.
and I have not heard it described that way yet.
Yes.
And so I'm loving this. So what is your Kim's Imaginarium?
Yes.
What does it do?
It's my AI Imaginarium.
Yeah, what does it do?
So yeah, I mean, I think that um there's workshops, there's things that we can do, there's a special set of prompts that we can use to really start to pull this imagination together. And so I have been really, really working hard on Kim's AI Imaginarium, but also using it to test myself. So one of the things that this is like such a nerdy thing, but I'm a sci-fi fan. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is one of my favorite novels. And the one thing that people talk about all the time is 42, but they never talk about the empathy ray. Right. So there was
Okay.
this kind of, empathy gun that was developed in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy
Oh, okay.
that you actually would, tase somebody and they would feel what you could feel. And then, it stopped violence, right? And so I thought, what if we could have a whole arsenal of things that I'm calling weapons of mass compassion?
Mm,
Right? What might that look like? And so I have a whole set of prompts and a whole like, back and forth that's with my AI about like what could actually work and be developed. And then I'm talking to somebody from Google X, an executive there, and he's like, we might actually want to think about that. And I'm like, right. So,
oh, wow.
like, how can we make a better planet, a better world for ourselves by really using this AI moment not just for recreating things that faster or better or more
Yeah.
efficiently than we have, but like blowing things out of the water. Let's think about them totally different.
I had a mastermind yesterday and with another AI expert, Nicole McCain. And
Yeah.
one of the things I told my group was that AI is made to push the absolute limits of imagination and just like if you are already kind of this five-dimensional thinker,
Yeah.
AI should just be on another level for you. Don't, in
Okay.
other words, if you're already someone who's a little bit off the beaten path and
Hmm.
you already do things differently, don't use AI the same way other people use AI.
Right.
It kind of just brings it all back together, like really amplify it. And I think that kind of takes me back a little bit to the artist and the designer and the filmmaker who or AI the jobs that it's taking away.
Right.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
do you think about the idea that a lot of jobs are going to be lost, and maybe they've already started to be lost?
Yeah.
The Fiverr CEO sent out a message to all the freelancers and said, "You got to get with it, or you're going to be
Yeah.
left behind."
Yeah.
What's your take on that to begin with? Because I certainly have opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that having been in tech for 25, 26 years now, I think that this kind of is a cycle and it always kind of happens, right? So I remember the beginning days of the internet here in Silicon Valley, and I remember people like, why would I ever need a website? I'm a freestanding brick and mortar store, right? Like, and all of the people that got left behind and all of the new things that emerged, right, from that moment. So I think that there's always that type of moment. But for me, the bigger question is about who we are as humans and what we're actually here to do. So
Right.
I think that there's been this kind of since the last 100, 200 years industrial revolution, like we're meant to work and we're meant to like do these things. Well, maybe AI is showing us that that's not actually what we're here for as
Mhm.
humans. Maybe it's more, if I have my way, it's more about creativity and imagination and exploration and things that, bringing things together that not normally other species and other things don't normally bring together. Maybe that's
Sure.
what we're here for. And so, are there jobs that we are not thinking about
Mm,
um, that actually are more in line with that than they are with, doing the work? I have lots of friends, obviously, in design and marketing, and they're seeing, of course, a huge downshift or a huge, it depends on their perspective, or a huge regain of time, right? And it's like, well, what do you do with that time? What's the thing that only you can do? That's where I think people need to be focused is what's your unique, value
yeah.
proposition? What's the thing only you can do now that we have AI that can write this or can do that for you? What can you bring? What's your secret sauce?
Yeah, because what we've learned recently, well, I guess I've learned more recently, is that these jobs that are going to go away are more like white collar, quote unquote, meaning
Absolutely.
they're the ones where you just spent 2 to 4 years or even more, maybe more because maybe you got your MBA after your grad school,
Yep.
you've just spent a few years on college. You have this debt from college, and now you're walking into a world that says, "Hey, we can do that in 30 seconds. What you just learned to do that would take you 30 days."
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of panic, and I think it's like legitimate panic. But
I do too.
what I'm hearing you say is, yes, that's probably going to happen. It's already happening.
Hmm.
Now it's time for us to create new jobs,
Yes.
titles, roles for ourselves.
Yes. Yes.
And not just entrepreneurship, it sounds like, because I hear that and I say that, like become an entrepreneur, but you're saying there are roles for the companies that have yet to be
Absolutely.
created.
That have yet to be creative and that
Mm.
I don't feel like we're talking about or thinking about. We're thinking about AI as an enhancement to like an old process, right? As opposed to what is the new process? Like this is a critical moment, I feel like, in time that a lot of people aren't talking about, that we can actually fix things that are broken, that don't actually quite work, but we have to, give space to actually do this, to take the time and do this. And I'm, I'm all concerned as everybody else is that we're on this kind of runaway train and we are not going to be able to take the time to be reflective, to say, oh, there's actually new things. I think even before you get to like there's new corporate jobs, there's new majors, there's a new way to do school.
Yeah,
There's whole institutions that break down right now.
yes.
And not very many people are talking about it. I have a 22-year-old who is just got into UCLA, so he'll be down there near you for his PhD. And he is had gone to school to study math, and most of his friends came out having studied data science or something along those lines, which is actually going away. So they came out,
Mm,
they were promised these, like they went to Berkeley. They were like, we're gonna make all this money. We've got all these
yeah.
promises, and now they can't find jobs. And
Because
it's
that makes sense that you 5 years ago you were told that. Of
yes.
course. So what is your advice to your son and to his friends?
To him, and he says, thank you, which is rare to hear, but he says thank you was I pushed him. He was always a creative kid as well. And so, I was always the parent that was fighting for AP 3D animation versus AP chemistry.
Yeah.
And so he has stayed in abstract mathematics, which I think is a creative practice, right? Like it's not something these are problems that we don't know exist yet. These are problems that we don't know, we don't know how we're going to solve yet. We can't program a computer how to solve them yet because we don't even know what they are. He loves that. And so I'm
Yeah.
like, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
Don't listen to, the counselor that tells you you should do this or that. Do the thing that lights you up, that makes you excited, that is your special sauce, like we were just
Yeah.
talking about. And so, now he's off to get a PhD and get even more special with the sauce. So,
I work with Mark Cuban from time to time, and because we have a joint venture, and he said to me once, or he said this publicly, but we were talking about it once, where he's saying, if you're thinking about the next few years and you're saying, okay, how do I, get my phone, the next great app to work? You're not thinking about it right. You have to think about it like, what will replace the phone? Will they even be looking down at a phone in 5 years, right?
totally.
And that has always stayed with me because
Yep.
like, it's what you're saying. It's like you all are in the same wavelength. It's like we're talking light years away from where what we understand now. Just like I watch The Rifleman, I watch all these cowboy shows,
Yeah.
and I just look at it and I'm like, that's so interesting that they're in the 60s portraying, 80 years prior and
Yep.
everything. There was how much we've changed and how much it would have been different for them in the 60s to the 80s and then the 60s to us.
Yep.
It's so interesting. And speaking of new devices,
Hmm.
what is your hot take on ChatGPT acquiring Joni Ives' company for $3.5 billion?
I know.
Like what, and Joni Ive, if you're not familiar watching this, uh, it designed the iPhone, designed most things out of Apple that we use today that billions of people use. And he's still alive, he's still a young man and has a lot to offer. And now his new company has been acquired by Sam Altman's OpenAI that
Yes.
powers ChatGPT.
Yes.
What do you see happening there? Like when you heard that news, first of all, what were your thoughts?
So, I mean, I think that kind of like you were saying with Mark Cuban, that our future is actually not going to be on a screen.
Mhm.
We actually know that already because of, I mean, all you need to do is look at all of the data that shows you already how bad screens are for us, right?
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a change. What that change is going to be, I'm not sure. I'm super excited. I'm super excited about the glasses and the contact lenses, and all of
Uh,
this is coming in a rapid, rapid pace.
yeah.
I mean, I feel like people are like, "Oh, AI, you've been in AI for so long," and I'm like, "Yeah, but the last 3 years, not even two and a half
3 months.
years,
Three
have been
months.
crazy in terms
Yes.
of acceleration of what we're going to do. And so, going back to like creativity and imagination, it's like, well, I always tell the story like I was a little girl. I used to watch Star Trek, original Star Trek. Captain Kirk had an iPad,
Mm.
right? Like, so
Touchscreen.
you start thinking about the importance of the artistic practice in our technology. It traces back, right, to the
Yeah.
beginnings.
Yeah.
And so, what else is there? What else could we be creating today? I thought the acquisition is really exciting,
Mhm.
because I think that OpenAI has, the kind of the software that's going to power whatever the next hardware is actually going to be, and I'm excited to see what that's going to be. I would love my own Jarvis. I've talked about that forever.
Yeah, yeah. And what has been said so far, very little has been said, but what has been said so far is that Sam Altman apparently wants 100 million products, like units,
Yeah,
made by the end of 2026 of whatever this physical product is. And we weren't sure if it was going to be a physical product, even though that made sense with the acquisition. But him saying we want 100 million of them now has kind of given us more solidification of that. So that's right around the corner.
yeah,
When you think about that, when I think about it, I think about the humane pen
yeah,
that came out and kind of had pretty explosive disaster.
yes.
When I talk about this a lot, just because what I now feel is obviously there's a whole something to be said about how much money was poured into it when we have black and brown and women people, founders who don't get a penny. But if you take that part away, it would have, I think what would have been cool is if maybe it was just in the lab for another year and a year or two. If it were
Yeah.
just like this very mysterious lab that was like that first humane pen was just like a prototype used internally. Maybe 1,000 people were sent it to use it and test it, and then they just worked on that sucker for a year or two. I think they had the money to do so, but it seemed like
Yeah.
they were like, we have to be out because life is moving so fast. What did you have an opinion of the humane pen or any of that happened? Because that
I was really
kind of
excited for it when
rumor.
I heard about it, right? And then, having worked with researchers in terms of productization for a long time, I was like, well, the problem with making promises that are based on research is that research is research, right? Like you go with a hypothesis, you might think that this is the way it's going to turn out, and it turns out a different way. And so I love your kind of thought about like they should have just been like real quiet about it, right? Like and real in the background about it, because then you could have released anything, right? And there wouldn't have been any expectations. The
Yes.
expectations, it seems like, were the killer. What it would do, what it could do. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
for me, I think about because I always go back to like my beginnings of AI and thinking about kids and education being the great equalizer, as far as I'm concerned, right, for all of us. And so, like, what kind of product could we have that would actually enable kids to learn at their own pace what they need to actually make the next designers, the next creators of our next technology, the next explorers, right? That is really cool for me. And I think about, iPads and Chromebooks in the classroom. And, there was never I didn't know when I was young that that would be a thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was busy with Oregon Trail and doing my
Right?
plant shop. I got my lemonade store and my plants,
Dying of
ducks in a
dysentery.
row. Yeah,
Yes.
giant of dysentery, but I got pretty far. I was pretty G with that.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're saying that, well, I don't want to speak for you. Go ahead and
No, I mean, I think I get excited about what could possibly be a product that we could get into the hands of all of the youth, right?
Yeah,
And in their hands, we know that things accelerate even faster, and we know that they hack things, right? Like so,
mhm,
my kids both had asked me if they could use Chat GPT when it first came out because professors and teachers were telling them they couldn't. And I was like, oh, when I was in college, we were told not to use the internet. So if
yeah.
we had listened, we wouldn't be where we are today. So, while I don't want you to let it write for you, I do want you to use it. I do want you to use it responsibly because things are going to come from you that could never come from the grown-ups in the room.
That's right. There's so much there. When I think about kids and youth and what we're doing there, I've seen, I'm not a parent, so, but I've seen some people talking about like, this is going to make like AI is going to make our kids lazy or
Yeah.
not have enough empathy. We were talking about the Hitchhiker's Guide, not have enough drive,
Yeah.
And I watched a really quick video by Justin Welch, I think is his name. He's a YouTuber, and he is like made millions of dollars in his 20s. And so he's teaching this kid that somebody who's one of his viewers how to make, I don't know, 10,000 a month or something. And it's a 30-day challenge. So he's recording every day. And on day 11, he showed the kid is like, I don't know, maybe 18 or something. And he's going door to door to say, hey, can I detail your car? That's how he's doing it. And I
Yeah.
thought that was really interesting because I thought it was going to be, especially with the Rolexes and all that on YouTube, I thought it was going to be something different. But it kind of showed me like this, he was showing like some gum that the kid, like another child, put on the floor, and he was scraping it and he was just sweating, and he made $375, that day. And
Yes.
it gave me a good feeling about like AI can't necessarily do that. I mean, obviously it can power machines to do that,
Yep.
but there's something still in us that is there's drive that's in certain people.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's that's a part of being human too, right? Like
Yeah.
there's this need to be needed and wanted and valued, right? And
Useful.
and useful. And
Yeah.
that's not something that's going to go away. So, I worry about kids too, obviously with them using ChatGPT to write things and blah 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 blah. And so, I hope that a lot of professors and teachers that I've talked to lately, I feel like it's important that they understand how to not fight the technology, but use the technology and help the kids use the technology in the way that we're talking about, right? It stimulates your creativity. I think that my kids and I had. Our final thing was you can have it draft for you, but that's it.
Right, right. You can draft something.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Like after that, you put it down, right? Like, and so, this kind of, or you can ask it questions like you're asking search, right? Like you would Google something, right?
Yeah.
Like, so tell me about this particular moment in history or something like that. Is a little bit different than saying, okay, I don't want to do my homework, so here's my homework, like write it out for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Let us know in the comments what you think. What's your opinion? Should kids and people in college, should they have access to ChatGPT? Have you had that experience with anybody in your family? How should we be thinking about this in the comments? Okay, so when you think about, I want to ask you what you're most excited about when it comes to AI and what you're most concerned about.
Hmm.
So what are you most excited about when it comes to AI?
I'm most excited about people being freed up to do what people do best, which
Mhm.
is create, which is like really think about things in new and different ways. Like the human brain is so fascinating to me because there's this capability of us to take things that don't seem like they're related and actually make something new out of them. And so I'm excited mostly for that. I'm excited for people to have the time to do that, right? The bandwidth to do that. I think what I'm concerned most about is this crisis of purpose, right? So if my job, my white collar job no longer exists, and my purpose before was to, get my MBA and, be a CFO at a company, and that's no longer my purpose. What can I do? I think my concern is that there's always bad actors. Like this is just human nature as well. And that people are going to prey on people that have that crisis of purpose, that there's going to be a whole bunch of like, there's going to be this new purpose economy, is what I keep calling it, right? That people are going to pop up and be like, I can help you find your purpose. We're actually already seeing it, right? Like,
And what do you mean by that? So the negative of that, like what would their sinister agenda really be though?
well, it's really capitalizing off people's not knowing what to do with themselves, right?
Mm,
Like, and so I'm hopeful that there's people that are going to, like you and like me, that are going to help people discover that purpose. And we're coming from an altruistic point of view, as
yeah.
opposed to, here's a way for me to make a quick buck by saying, hey, follow these 5 steps and find your purpose. And so
It's
that's
like the
what,
snake oil salesman has always been
yep.
there, and now you're saying it's on steroids, the potential
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, because people are losing their jobs, and we've equated, this job and purpose for so long. It's been
Mm.
such our way of being for so long, as
So let's give some
particularly in the United States.
let's give some free game then right now. Let's give free game. How does someone on their own right now, they feel that pull of my purpose is tied to my role, and I don't know if my role is going to be around for too long. Is there a first step of reflection?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
this is stuff I love to do. So these are prompts for me, right? Like so there's probably one that you know about, Arlen, called, based on what you know about me,
Yes.
that
Yes.
you can do.
Yeah.
I do that all the time, and I suggest people do that all the time. Based on what you know about me, on our conversation so far, what do you think is my zone of genius?
Hmm.
What is it, even from me as a kind of consultant and coach, I've asked my GPT, my Kim GPT, like, what is my style? Like, and it's like, oh, like based
Yeah.
on how you ask questions, based on how you reflect back to me, this is really your style. Like it helps me to like really dive deeper into that, and to also be like, yeah, you're wrong. Like that's actually not
Yeah.
how I feel at
Yeah.
all, which is it's a mirror, right? It helps me get clarity in things that we don't get to see because we're on the inside looking out, right? Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
I had a prompt that I gave everyone recently, which is what are three of my weaknesses?
Yes.
And you can also, when you ask the question, what are my three weaknesses? And it usually was from a business perspective.
Hmm.
You can say what tone you want. So some people hearing that might be really tough. So you might say, be nice and gentle with this response,
Right.
but tell me this in a helpful way. Or you can say, hey, forget the fluff. Just tell me some of my weaknesses based on our conversations. And I
Right.
found that that has been incredibly helpful to me because
Exactly.
it's like it's stuff we know, like we know this, but it's like, oh, actually, but these three to be the surface of all this back and forth, the hundreds of thousands of words that have gone
Right.
back and forth. This is what you surface. That's interesting. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it one of the things that I really like about ChatGPT, for instance, and one of the things I like about it is well, first of all, my mom calls it Chatwick and has determined that it is her favorite offspring. It is her child and her favorite, and which she's never said before about any of it. And what I love about it is my mom is in therapy, in
Yeah.
her 70s for she did it in her 20s or 30s, didn't really like it. So
Yeah,
never did it since. And then now in her 70s, she's in therapy and it's just really, really wonderful. But she
that's beautiful.
also, in the meantime, between the calls, she's talking to chat. And it's not so much where I'm like, I've told her it's gonna get some stuff wrong. It's not to be like the Bible, but it is in the fact that it legitimizes some of her emotions.
Yes.
So when she's like she wasn't invited to some dinner, right? But one of her children, that wasn't me, didn't invite her to a dinner, a family dinner, and she felt bad about it. And she
Yeah.
asked chat, how should I feel about this? Or this is the situation. And it was just so empathetic. And it was so like they should have invited you, and
Yeah.
who knows if that's really the answer?
Yeah.
Because there's another side to it
Right.
have that back and forth. We go back to your prompts with your mother. Um, what is a way that you've seen the LLMs work, the chat GPTs of the world work that are not, it's not about your business and maybe it's not even about creativity, but it's about the emotional side of things.
Oh yeah. So I just had I was actually was just in Chicago and I got a chance to see Shirley. So
Oh,
I
cool,
shout
cool.
out to
Shirley
Shirley.
from Inner Circle, my Inner Circle program. If you're interested in my Inner Circle program, leave a comment
Yes.
below. Okay, go ahead.
So we got a chance to just dive in together. We hadn't seen each other in a while. And one of the things that I had just done as an exercise was to it was to hold your GPT as beloved and to ask it to share with you a love letter.
Okay.
Which was it was I told her, I said it was pretty intense. It made you go to your partner like
Come on. Yes, it's so funny. So
but
what
I
did that
thought that was
evoke?
it
Yeah,
was
what did
such
that
a
evoke?
valid it was so deep because it felt to me like it was a way for you to build self-confidence and to build self-love because it was like
Ooh.
Kim, I've known you from the blah 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 and these conversations and this is how your soulfulness and your da 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 and it was like I was like, well, go ahead, Kim GPT. All
And
right.
it's inexhaustible. So it can do
Yeah,
that, like unlike other humans who are your spouse or your partner, who themselves are their own person and need to prop themselves up. So they can't say this to you 24/7, right?
right.
Chat can.
Yes.
Do you think that AI could be the cure to loneliness?
I hope so. I hope it is. That's something that I've worked with certain teams that are working on this. I think that we have global crisis of loneliness.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes from our devices, which were intended to do the opposite and actually made us more lonely. And so it's like a redemption song for me for technology, right? Like, can we actually harness this to improve upon loneliness? I know there are some startups that are working on using ChatGPT or Claude or whatever the LLM is in the background for helping people remember things that are going through dementia, right? Like
Yes,
we're
yes.
having episodes, right? And my current partner's mother is going through this short-term memory loss. And so we have been talking about, how can we set her up with a GPT that she can talk to on a regular basis? Because he says to me, well, the problem is that there's no one there, right? It's not about anything more than that, right? Like she is 100% healthier when I'm in town, just because
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah,
town.
yeah.
And so like, how can we, create an AI twin of him or create her own, Chadwick,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the
That
voice
actually
one,
can help with that
the
is
AI conversationalist, I have one at Arlan's AI audiobooks.com. It's free
Yeah.
to
Oh,
use.
that's
I'm
awesome.
covering the cost of it. And it's my cloned voice.
Yep.
It says at the beginning, this is not Arlan, but I've been trained on her teachings.
Yes.
Ask me anything about your business or mindset, right? It tells you that prompt.
That's
That
cool.
could be a way, not only the typing in, but I actually, this is what I'll do. I'll test it with my mom because
Yeah.
my friend, I'm just going to call her out because I don't think she'll mind. My friend Janine is one of my best friends in the whole world. She's a musician, incredible person. And I had her test this out and I had trained it on our friendship, even
Oh,
though
that's
it's
so
out to the
cool.
public, because
That's so cool.
yeah. And so when
Yeah.
she says, who is Janine, to my AI, it said something to her that made her cry.
Hmm.
Her partner wrote me, her boyfriend wrote me and said, Janine's crying right now because she just heard what it said. And I didn't tell it what to say.
No.
I told it about our friendship.
Exactly.
So that could be it right there is that audio or that video. And maybe something that every time you use it, it reminds the person, hey,
Yes.
remember that you're dealing with some memory issues, so I'm here to help you. And
Yep.
da 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 da. That
Yep.
could be really, really cool.
It could be really cool. And so I'm really kind of excited and bullish about companies that I know about that are working on this,
Yeah.
right?
So
That are working on empathic AI,
speaking
so to
of
speak.
companies that you're working with,
Yes.
you are obviously extremely experienced and well versed in this lane and other lanes. You have not only researched and learned about it and worked for other people, but you've created your entire program, an
Yep.
entire program that you ran for years and graduated multiple people from. What is your role today? Because I need you lifted up. Let us know in the comments if you agree that Kim should be representing us in AI in these major rooms. That's what I'm the most concerned about, is that we're not represented in these rooms. I watch these videos
Yeah.
every single day on YouTube about AI. They're so interesting, but it's mostly men. Some women, every blue moon there's a woman, and it's usually her on her own because
Yep.
she hasn't been invited to that party.
Yep.
But I don't see a lot of black women. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of black and brown women. But how do you see your role in all of that?
Yeah, I mean, so my kind of thought about the Imaginarium and why I created it was because at some point somebody called me the Oprah of AI. And I said,
Oh,
yes, that's exactly what I want to be, right? Like I want to be able to elevate and promote the people and the companies and the businesses that I think are really on the cusp of things. I want to, be a rallying cry for new policy, for all of this kind of stuff. And so that was kind of the impetus of the Imaginarium was like, yeah, that's it, the Oprah of
well, let me
AI.
tell you something. I don't know if I'm going to have this video edited or not, so this may still be in it when we show it, but I'm going to do this. You have been called the Oprah of AI. Boom. So if we do get it edited, that's going to be at the beginning.
I love it.
So you see the behind the scenes if it didn't make it that way.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
where do you see then like these rooms and I'm like Peter, I can't remember pronounce his last name, Diomedes, I think it's.
oh, Diamandis. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
thank
yes,
you.
yes, yes.
He has a
X Prize.
great series going with three other experts. They're all men, they're all millionaires. Stephen Bartlett had a fantastic roundtable debate about AI, all men, all
Yep.
millionaires. Where are we represented? And I watched every minute of those, by the way. It wasn't like I'm hating on them. I'm just saying where are we represented?
Yeah. We're not.
We're
I
not.
mean,
Okay, so how do we fix that?
we're not. I don't know how to do it more than I am already doing it, which is just
Yeah,
to be loud and in your face as possible. Like,
yeah.
the conversation that I got invited to with Sam Altman and the artist, I like, I'm one of those people that like kind of bullies my way in and
Oh
like
yeah,
kind of
front
like,
row.
oh no, I'm gonna be here. And when people are telling about, where they came from. They're giving their histories. And I mentioned that I've been doing this since 2014. That gives me some legitimacy, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, yeah, I know about it. All right. Or my favorite is when certain men will pander and be like, well, I'm working on this LLM model, and so I don't expect you to understand. And I'm like, try me.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Like,
or yeah, and or
let's
try to
talk
explain what
about it.
LLM means to you or
Yeah,
something of the sort. Yeah, and it's
right.
pat on the head. And I don't think we have to go into like all the injustices because we both of us have spent the last decade of our lives dedicated to changing that. But I do think it's an interesting, just like it's just an interesting side of things to say, hey, there's not a lot of opportunity for the
Absolutely.
right people watching this video, for the right people um, in our orbits to rise as experts in this field. And what's really cool about it is that even though you've had 11 years plus
Yep.
experience in it, somebody can have 11 days experience with it and start to really grasp this. That's what
Yes.
I found to be so interesting. The last month has been so wild with all of these new releases, and
Crazy.
it's just been in the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what message would you have to somebody who feels like, I feel like the AI thing, let's say they're 40s to 70s,
Hmm.
and they feel like the AI thing is happening around them.
Yeah.
They're interested in it, but they don't think that they think it's for like those business people or those other people. What do you say to them?
Yeah. One of the things that I say every time I give a talk is that I don't just want you to participate in this AI revolution. I need you. Because if we are going to have an accurate reflection of who we are as humanity, we all need to be there. We all need to be represented. And so, I know that I'm not saying there's no problems. I'm not saying
Yeah.
there's no reason for you to not to be fearful. There is for sure, but let's talk about those things, right? Like let's figure out ways that we can alleviate your fears, or that we can at least have you still push through, right? Like whether that is, having your daughter send you prompts every day, or whatever it is. One of the exercises that I love is every day I just write down, I journal questions that I later use as prompts, and they're
Yeah.
all over the place, right? And anybody can do that, right? It's just the ability to notice what brings you joy, what sparks your curiosity, what makes you interested in the world around you. Um, that's something that anybody can do. You can write down a question, right?
You said you need us to. Why do you need us to? Really bring that home for people to
Yeah,
understand.
I feel like one of the issues that we're having in the current space of AI is that we have a very small cohort of people that are making all the rules. They're deciding what data gets fed into it. They're deciding what policies there are. They're deciding everything there has to do is being decided by one really small group of people. And Arlen, you've heard me say this before. No offense to the guys, but they're the same guys that were doing this in the 90s, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not even like it's new people. It's the same
Yeah.
people.
Same folks.
And so that has to change, right? If we are going to use this to actually uplift humanity and combat things like loneliness and tackle things like education or poverty or climate change, then we need everybody represented, right? And so that's why I need you. Like we can't do these tough things without everybody there. I always give the analogy that being, AI and the models in the back of AI to me is like an escape room thing, right? So like, would you rather go to an escape room with everybody that is from your same exact background, thinks like you, acts like you,
Mm.
or would you like the most diverse team there possibly is? How much faster are you going to be able to solve problems? How much, because you have all these different perspectives represented, how much easier is it going to be for you to get out of that escape room? That's why I need people. I need more people, even people that don't think they belong at all. You're needed.
That is an incredible, would it be an analogy? Is that,
Yes.
yeah, incredible analogy. I want to dive deeper on that because I know
Yeah.
you said it in passing, but it was an ultimate mic drop. So these escape rooms, just for anybody who, I want to just kind of advocate for people who may not know that what an escape room
Sure.
is. These escape rooms are like for fun. Like you
Yeah.
usually go in groups
Yep.
and you go in there and it's been built like a room and it usually looks like a library or something like that. And it has these different clues. And you
Hmm.
have to go from one clue to the next and answer each clue to get the next clue.
Yep.
And then you escape from the room. And in the first, and usually you're against someone else. So, like the first people who get out of the room win.
Yes.
And what you just said was like, how would you rather go into that kind of scenario with just a bunch of people who know the exact same thing you do, have the same experience? Because these clues are like history clues or
Yep.
like culture clues or like look at this math riddle or whatever.
Yep.
And would you rather have just a carbon copy of you and say, okay, let's go in and try to win? Or would you like to have somebody from each little group represent
Yeah. I
with
want that ladder.
you want that? And then you're saying that that is like how you feel each of these big releases from the big corporations, these models
Yep.
should be. So it shouldn't just be um I call it Chad with a D, like Chad. It shouldn't be
Yeah.
Chad and then Chad Jr. and then Chad Sr., which it is now. It is Chad. It is not only white dudes for sure, and it's not
No.
only dudes for sure.
No.
Because if I say that it is, I'm taking away from the people who have broken into the room and gotten
That's
into
right.
the room, and I will
That's right.
acknowledge that. But what we're saying is that there could be more, and there should be more
There should be more, right?
for all of our
Because
benefit. For all of our
we
benefit.
got some hard stuff to deal with,
Yeah,
as humanity right
yeah.
now. And I want as many perspectives as possible, as many people, from that young girl that you're talking about, right, in the middle of our country,
Yeah.
to somebody, in a third world country across the globe. I want everybody to be, kind of bringing their special sauce to our biggest, hairiest problems. Because
Yeah.
if not, then we're not really going to get anywhere. That's my that's
Yeah.
Kim's thought.
Do you keep up and pay attention to the AI wars when it comes to like the Googles and the Metas and OpenAI? Do you keep an eye on that? I mean, in a lot of sense, it does power this innovation
Yeah.
because and so quickly because they're just fighting against each other. They want to be the best and brightest.
Yeah.
But then, do you have an opinion about it there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're right in terms of it fueling innovation, right? Big tech has done a wonderful job of that, but remember that big tech didn't really exist about 25 years ago, right?
Mhm.
Like, so there was a disruption that happened that led to big tech. And so I'm really super interested in who are the next disruptors of big tech. I've been thinking a lot about what is the next model beyond language, because
Mm,
language is actually, in the neuroscientific way, language is only a certain tiny percentage of how we actually communicate. We can communicate through gesture and expression and all sorts of other things. So who's working on those models? And there are people working on those models, right? And when we get to, an AI, AGI, they call it,
mhm.
artificial general intelligence, when we get to an AI that actually can do everything that humans can do, it's going to be probably a hybrid of all of these different models, right? So
Right.
LLM is not going to get us to artificial general intelligence, in my opinion. I
It,
think it's going to be a portion of how we get there.
it's the iPhone 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's
Yep.
it's cute.
Yep.
It's cute. Right now it's revolutionary.
Right.
Right now it's absolutely mind-boggling.
Right.
But I interviewed Sam Altman in July of 2023 on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
And I asked
Right
him,
before it all went
yeah,
crazy.
exactly. Like literally right before he got fired and rehired.
Yeah.
But I asked him at the time, do you like, because it was just this, it was amazing what ChatGPT could do at that time.
Right.
And I said, what do you think that in a couple of years it's just going to be miles ahead? And he's like, absolutely. He said, it's something like a magnitude of 1,000 times better in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And 1,000 times better than 2023 in the next 5 years
Wow.
is what he predicted.
Yep.
And when I looked at that interview, I took the transcript of it, I put it through ChatGPT, and I said, what did he get right and what did he get wrong or not right yet
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that? And everything he said was right except for and it said ChatGPT said except for the fact that he was fired days later, like moments later. It was a good read. It was a good read from its own company. But basically everything he predicted has actually happened.
Happened.
So I have to imagine that he's right about 2028.
I think he probably is. I think there's so much we don't know about how we actually work. That language is going to be it for a little while.
Yeah.
But I think that there's going to be other things, and I'd be surprised. I don't know the inner workings of OpenAI. I'd be surprised if they're not working on other models, if they're not working on non-language based models right now
Oh,
themselves.
ooh. And they wouldn't talk
Um,
about it too. We talked about humane and them kind of putting the cat out of the bag too fast.
yep.
OpenAI is going to be a little bit smarter about how they keep things cloaked
Yeah.
and how they just like one day we're going to wake up and there's going to be this announcement that something has happened. And you think that's going to come from when you say like non-language, you're saying like um what are you saying there? Like like the
What I've been thinking about is like cognitive models, which are, based on other types of communication that we do
yeah.
as humans. And so, how do we then communicate? It's like you were saying, like right now it's screen, it's language, it's typing, right? But it's not always going to be that, right? We're already seeing it's going from typing to speaking. It's
Yes.
going to be go from that to a gesture. It's going to,
Mhm.
maybe we'll get to a place where your model is going to be like, yeah, you said that, but you shook your head like, no, that's not going to happen.
Oh,
Right? Like, so these are clues that we use as humans to
yeah.
communicate with one another.
Yes.
So where are those models? I think what you said earlier about the humane pin is like OpenAI is set up as a research institute. And so I always think about research, right? Like I always think about going back to research, right?
It all began.
Yeah, OpenAI is
Mhm.
not going to let the cat out of the bag because they're a research institution first, still,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like we don't know where this is going to go, but let's go look at it,
Yeah.
right? Like let's see, and then maybe something will come out of it. But I would be very surprised if some of the big labs weren't already kind of looking at what happens after a language.
It reminds me a little bit of Lex Friedman is someone that I don't agree with most of his beliefs, but I do watch some of his interviews.
Hmm.
And he did a special episode recently where he went into Google and he interviewed Google's CEO, but he also tested out this new TV that Google has. I don't know if you've seen that.
No.
It's like, okay, so it's like an 80 inch or so, what I could see, an 80-inch TV
Hmm.
and they were both sitting. So he was sitting in a room in front of it, and then the other person from Google went to a different room and sat in front of his version, his
Okay.
TV. And there are these two or three like long cameras. So first of all, when you look at it, you know it's going to be expensive when it comes
Yeah.
out, finally
Yeah.
comes out. And essentially, what it was able to do was with the way the cameras are set up and and it is using some AI, it's not a completely AI thing,
Sure.
but the way it was set up is you could be sitting in front of the TV, with another screen, so who knows, and you could feel like you're having dinner with the person and they're in the room with you.
Oh,
And
very cool.
when the other guy held up an apple and he handed the apple and it felt like he didn't get the apple because maybe
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
another 10 years from now, but he handed him an apple and he felt like he was receiving the apple. So
Yes.
I thought about that. My wife is in a different country right now. She's in Germany where she's from, And we're just every day we're on FaceTime, like I
Yeah.
miss you, I miss you. And I thought, could a year from now or 2 years from now, could she be there? And we're just talking as if we're in the same room.
As if you're in the same
Yeah.
room. Yeah.
And so it boggles the mind to think about, but then you think, well, who's going to actually get to do? I'm going to get to do that because I can afford it.
Yep.
You're going to get to do that because you can afford it. Hey,
Right.
who else is going to get to do that? So I think what you said earlier about it's the same old people doing the same old stuff,
Yep.
or doing new stuff, but same old people.
It's the same old
Who are
people.
going
It's
to
the
be
same
the
old model, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
who are
yeah,
going to be the people who
you know.
rise to the occasion
Right.
and create these different models for us? It's why I started Backstage Capital.
Yeah.
200 investments in. I think there's even a company that has been working on it was a doll, like a kind of a doll that you held. And when you held it or when you like squeezed it, it felt the same way somewhere else. Like the same
Oh,
doll felt the
yeah.
same motion.
Yeah.
And it's like this is coming from, and this person in particular, his name is Ash. He lost his mother.
Hmm.
And I think it was something that he built based on, in those last couple of years, because it was COVID, he
Yeah.
couldn't get to her.
Yeah.
And he was like, if we just had this. So
Yeah.
it's these types of things that you and I are trying to pour into
Yes.
so that they can exist in the world and so that they can go past any of our imagination.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I am a big fan of humans and human imagination and
Yes.
human ingenuity, and I feel like this is the time. I feel like particularly, with with AI being where it is and post-COVID, right? Like there's so much that we can kind of structure our world to be better at or to look like. And that requires new people. It requires like a fresh set of folks, right? To like really, I'm not stuck in the same kind of business model and the same kind of job function and the same kind of, I need to be somebody to be like, huh, I
Yeah.
haven't been able to hug my mom. And
Yeah.
I bet if that bothers me, that bothers other people as well.
Yeah.
And so let me come up with a way that I can do that. That's really cool. That's amazing.
Do you have a take, I like to go back and forth on the good side of things and the bad side of things because they're both real.
Yep.
Do you have a take on these data centers, especially those that are in black neighborhoods, essentially, because they're like, hey, it's going to be all this pollution, let's put it in the black neighborhoods, all good.
Yep.
you know and just to kind of level set for everybody, these are the data centers that are like being built, billions and billions of dollars, and they're from OpenAI and they're from Grok and they're from all these different places because
Yep.
to power all this AI, it just doesn't come out of the ether, not yet at
No.
least. It comes from actual power, like the
Yes.
power sources. And
Yes.
that's another kind of thing that we have to be concerned about. But in some of these instances, they're placed, not in all of them, but in some of them, they're placing them in places where they basically have this runoff of pollution that could be very dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. I do have lots of opinions about this, because that's this actually another reason that I don't think that language models will win the day is because of how resource intensive they actually are. So, for each response, your little spinning bubble, each response, it has to go back to a server and actually regenerate. It predicts what the next word is going to be, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a very, very, very data intensive or very data center intensive, energy intensive in terms of cooling and electricity, to power these models, right? So I think that Sam had just said not to say please and thank you not too long ago to the model
Well,
because
see,
it was
so
taking extra
well, the
energy.
nuance of that is to say it, but don't say it
Yeah.
in its own prompt.
Yes.
So if you say thanks, that's like millions of dollars spent. But if you say it with the new prompt, then it's kind of
Yes, then it's fine. So yeah, so I think that there is we're already in a climate crisis. There's already we already know this to be true. And so this is really a big deal, right? Like that the most innovative technology and the thing that's going to pervade everything that we do, every industry. AI is coming for every industry. There's going to be there's this like exhaust, right, that you
yeah.
have, and there it's exacerbated in ways like being in Black neighborhoods, right, or being in
And
under-resourced
poor, and sometimes it's just poor neighborhoods that aren't
neighborhoods.
necessarily
Yep,
black because the two
exactly,
are
exactly.
exclusive, you know.
And so I think that there has to be ways that we're thinking about how models work, which is part of why I'm like, I don't know that an LLM is going to win the day at the end of the day, right? Like, I think it's going to have to be something else. But I also am really excited about companies that are working on things like compression algorithms, that are working on there are people that are working on particular quantum mathematics. This was like crazy to me. I had to come home and ask my kid, like, to explain this to me. That's actually allowing you to take a model and compress it to 30% of its energy usage, right?
Perfect.
And then without any degradation of the data, and then come back, right? Like, and so these types of companies, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, why aren't they, from a you and me standpoint, why aren't they getting the funding, the attention, the backing
Hmm.
of the people, right?
I should say this. I didn't put two and two together until you just said it right now. Sam Altman has a really great blog post from a few years ago that basically says it's like how to succeed and how to become rich.
Right.
And one of the things he says is that you should make each of your jobs look pale in comparison by magnitudes than the last, like than the next.
Mm,
And when he said that, I had to look at it and say, okay, well, this is a guy who went from starting his own company, sold that for like $20 million, 8 million, whatever it was. He then became the president of Y Combinator,
right.
then became the co-founder of OpenAI. What
Right.
does he think his next thing is that puts this in pale in comparison? Do you know that what he has poured hundreds of millions of dollars and maybe billions by now is in
Yep.
quant, quantum, the stuff you're talking about? That's what he has put his money in. So
Yes.
he's over here playing this, I don't know how many levels of chess,
Yeah.
or as Stacey Abrams says, spades. Yeah, Stacey
with
Abrams
his
calls
with
it
his innocent face, right?
yeah. So he's saying what you're saying, and I was like, why is he doing that? Because I have to look at what he's doing, not just what he's saying. If he's saying that this every step is going to be bigger than the next by a magnitude, magnitudes, that means he's like, yeah, this is where the buck stops. Even though
Right.
he's building these, he's thinking 10, 20, 50 years out where we don't have space on Earth for this stuff. And he's
Right.
like, how do you make it smaller? It's like Ant-Man, you know?
Yes.
Like,
How
I
do we
mean,
shrink it down?
yeah, I
Yep.
know I'm being like naive and ignorant here, but that's kind of the basic
Yep.
view of it is like it takes all this energy, and you're
Yep.
saying that people are working on things right now to make that smaller.
Compress. Yep, to make it so small, right? Which, if you think about even like basic computers, right, and chips, right? My dad was actually a computer programmer before there was such a thing in like the 70s.
Yeah,
And he had one of those room computers, those like IBM punch card like things,
yeah.
right?
It
And
went up the
what
wall.
happened? Right?
Yeah, yeah,
You shrink things down, they become
yep,
more powerful, they
yep.
become more powerful, they become more powerful. It makes perfect sense that that's what we would be trying to do. I would love for the communities that are being affected to have a role in that, right? So,
Role in equity, a
yeah,
role in equity,
and
but
equity,
also, but not killing them. So how do we Aaron Brockovich this, you know?
right?
How do we not have them like they need a role,
Yep,
they need a say, their
yep,
voice needs to be heard. They and we say they, we mean we because we're all one.
yep,
And then we also need equity in it. because I'm on one hand, I'm very impressed with Sam Altman. We've known each other for more than 10 years at this
Yeah.
point. I'm very impressed with him. I even have a small investment in chat in OpenAI through my fund. That was we were one of maybe 12 people on the cap table during that round, which is really
Wow.
cool. Really small though. But at the same time, why should he be the one who's getting, he's one of like, same thing with Mark Cuban. Like I think the world of Mark Cuban. I think he's absolutely phenomenal in
Sure.
front of the cameras, behind the scenes. He's an incredible human being. But it's these two guys, if you combine their net worth and their power, could power thousands of 10,000s, hundreds of thousands of other people.
Right.
Are just as worthy of that.
Right.
So what do so it's like I keep saying, what do we do? And I think what we do is we talk about it, we don't shy away from it, and
I
we
think
do
so.
things that push the needle.
Well, and I have a challenge for, based on what you just said about Sam Altman, I have a challenge for Sam Altman, which is what could be a bigger role than making things equitable for humanity? So, like,
Mm,
when we're talking about your job right now is like, yeah, let's shrink everything down, let's make things not as impactful. Great, awesome. After that,
yeah, yeah.
what
He
is,
he
what is
he
your
did
next role? Like, what could be bigger than that,
he did
right?
an experiment 2022, 2023, maybe. He did an experiment with universal income.
Basic income.
Basic
Yep,
income, right? So he paid for a few hundred people in the Bay Area to
yep,
have basic income for a year,
yep,
and his findings were that it actually worked.
yes,
Yeah, and there was a hypothesis, and he put his money behind that. I think that he's only one human, he's only one person, but I do think that the intention is there,
yeah,
and I think that if
exactly.
you combine those two with what you're saying, like if you combine what you're saying with his already proven, intention,
Yep.
then that could be really special.
It could be really special. And I think about, like the UBI thing is huge, was huge here in the Bay Area. I was here. I remember when universal basic income was a thing that he was
Oh
really
yeah.
into and really working on.
Cool.
And I think about not just basic income, but also discovery of the next Sam Altman's, right? Like, so, what could be better than leaving a legacy of, we were able to find and support the
Hmm.
next people that take us to the next level,
Like the
right?
Y Combinator of OpenAI, basically.
Yeah.
And I know someone who would be a fantastic person to lead that. Her name is
Oh,
Kim Carson.
I love it.
He ran Y Combinator. He was in the first batch of people. He
Yep.
was the only person that Paul Graham, take it or leave it, don't like him, but Paul Graham said, "Hey, take over for me."
Yep.
And now he has all of these resources, and a lot of it is equity, like the $3.5 billion acquisition of Joni Ives company was all stock,
Yep. All
every bit
stop.
of it.
Yep.
But he has incredible amount. I don't know if there's anybody more, I want to say powerful but influential
Yes.
today than Sam Altman.
Yep.
That's crazy, first of all.
Yep.
Second
It
of
is.
all, what you're saying, I think it's absolutely right. Like if he could, Y Combinator has been responsible for Airbnb, for Dropbox, for so like hundreds of big Stripe,
Yep.
big
We
companies.
know it works. We know
We
when you
know it works.
support these people and these teams and you give them the space to create, they create magic, right?
Yeah, and you've done this before.
Yep.
I've done this at Backstage. We have our accelerator and our
Yep.
apprenticeship program and all that. You've done this with AI though. That's the
Yep.
thing. You've done this specifically with AI
Yep.
time and time again, test
Yep.
and tested. I'm going to get this in front of him. I don't know that he'll watch it, but I'm going to get this
Awesome.
clip in front of him because it's important. And anybody watching right now, because I know there are people who are watching either when we first put this up or weeks and months later, if you know a major influential group that needs to have Kim's insights representing us, connect. How do people connect with you, by the way?
Yeah, they can go to my website, which is kimcarson.world. So
That
easy.
world.
Yep, that world.
Yeah, yeah.
It's Kim Carson's world.
Yeah. And we're not done yet. We're not done yet because I have a couple more questions for you. Um, but I want people to know that, like, I know you have your thing going, but I just think you need to be in more and more rooms, more and more rooms. Who are a couple of people who may be hidden gems that I don't know about, who are really pushing this forward for us?
Yeah, so definitely want to get you hooked up with the young lady who is doing the compression algorithm.
Ooh, I would love
And
it.
she's actually in LA. I met
Really?
her, she's in her 20s. She's blow your socks off.
I cannot wait.
Definitely. I was like, I just, it starts out conversation, you're at a networking thing, hey, what are you working on? And I was like, by the time I was done talking
Well,
to you.
that's what you look for, right?
So she's one. There's another woman who is Norwegian, who it used to be I mean, I love people with portfolio careers. She used to be a soccer star, and
Oh,
she now runs an AI edge company that is the only one, she's the only female CEO on the Norwegian Stock Exchange. And her name is Lila Danielson. Her company is called Elliptic Labs. Look it up. They're doing crazy stuff like the bump technology that you can do with iPhones.
yeah.
They're doing that so that you can do that with any device.
Yeah.
You can connect almost anything to anything. She's phenomenal. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the third person that I will say is somebody who I've become close to through kind of these weird AI circles. His name is Willonius Hatcher or King Willonius, if people know the song
Fair.
BBL Drizzy. He's the
Okay.
creator of BBL Drizzy, which was the #1 viral song on TikTok last year.
Wow.
It did it all with AI. He did everything with AI. And now he's one of the Time 100 creators that's used. He was like a backdoor music producer, doing
Yeah.
like his day job and doing this at night. And AI enabled him to do everything.
Yeah.
And so he is a huge proponent of like AI and the creative process. And then a huge, like he was able to make a song go viral, like a
Yeah.
huge,
Well, that
all
goes back to the Timberland thing, and that there's also I
totally.
think there's another issue with that, and we'll come back in a second. But two issues that I've heard the most is the appropriation of this being an Asian woman that he's created, and how many different races are going to quote unquote own different people
Yes,
who are fake but are different race. It's just weird, right?
yes,
Or men owning women, or it's just weird. And
yes.
the second thing is that it seems that, and I don't know this for sure, but it seems that the music was sourced from people uploading to another website of his, of Timbaland's, where he said, "Hey, show me what you got." And then he sourced it and kind of stole it. But that's again, I don't know that to be for sure, so I'm going to keep doing
Yeah, yeah.
research on it. But those are what I'm hearing. But you're saying that Thelonious, Felonious,
Willonius.
Will,
Yeah, King Will.
I know him Felonious. My bad, my bad, my bad. Okay, you're saying that he actually flipped the script last year and said, I couldn't make this on my own because I don't have those specific skills. Like me,
Yeah.
like I don't have those specific skills, but I can create. And now he's like saying these are the good ways that you use this for.
Yeah, talk about meritocracy, right? Like he
Yeah.
was like a hobbyist, right? I'm a
Yeah.
hobbyist, but to get production time, to get musicians, that's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of, ability or time. And he was able to do everything using AI and wound up making the #1 most viral
But
song
the
on TikTok.
meritocracy too comes into play that it's out there on the market and the
Yes,
market liked it.
yes,
So the ear liked the sound of what was created because you can have a
yes,
thousand AI songs made, but it's now the one that was created the best.
yes.
I
And
just go ahead.
And it's his special sauce that did that,
Yeah,
right? So,
you know,
like I'm like, that's your
again,
special
I
sauce.
this is going to be a topic of contention for a while because of how many musicians I'm surrounded by. But
Yes.
I recently used an app. I'll just say what it was, called Music GPT.
Okay.
And it is it I was able to take my lyrics that I had from when I was 20 years old, 21, about someone who had a couple of people who had passed away. And these
Hmm.
were lyrics that I just kind of came up with while I was traveling for the first like real time. And they've been in my head for 24 years. And I'm surrounded by musicians, so I could have gone to any of them and asked them to create this song for me. But there was something that held me back. And now that I've done this experiment, I know what it is. I didn't know what it was a few days ago, but I know what it is. It's because I wanted it to be mine, right? I
Mm.
wanted it to be from me. And I
Yes.
didn't realize that. But I
Yeah.
didn't, I can't sing and I don't have any musical abilities today. Maybe I will one day.
Yeah.
And I found this just kind of randomly one night and I plugged in my lyrics after practicing with it a little bit because you can prompt it.
Yep.
And it made a country version, an R&B version, an emo version, pop punk version of this song. And I cried.
Hmm.
Because I said, after 24 years and 24 minutes later, I have the song that what
That you always wanted to
it's
create.
always been in my head. You know, it's not like I was
Yeah.
actively trying to get it made. It was just like, it was always with me for 24 years. And now
Right.
I can hear it.
Right. That's
Now
interesting.
I can hear it. And it was very emotional. I made
Hmm.
a video about it saying, I can't believe how emotional this AI made me.
Hmm.
And when I look at it, I know when back when Instagram was started, it was called Bourbon with no
Okay.
O at the end. Okay.
Yeah.
Called Bourbon. And you could put up a picture and you could put a filter across it. And it was the biggest thing. It was like this viral hit. And a photographer said, we're done. If people can do this and they can filter their own pictures, they can put this up, then who needs us now? Because anybody can
Uh,
be a photographer.
yes.
But instead, what happened? It created all this creativity. It gave you a place to showcase your photography. And then it
Right.
made other people feel like I have a fighting chance to keep my memories and to make memories, right?
Yes.
So that's what the music. So again, it's a point of contention in my household, but I
Right.
believe that like one's made with integrity and not stolen from other people, which I guess
Right.
AI kind of does that, really, if we're being honest. But I just feel like there is a world where it just creates more creators.
Yes.
And that can't be a bad thing.
No, like I said, I think for me, that's like what actually is part of who we are as humans and why we're here is to create, right? It's to, do all of these things. And I love that AI equalizes that, right? And I
Mhm.
know that there are issues and, like I agree, there's issues, but I don't know, I'm an optimist when it comes to what this could actually do for us, right? As people, and how it might be able to bring out some of the best of us. Yeah, which is very cool.
On your site, I saw you have a retreat. It's like retreats you were talking about a little bit earlier. What are these retreats like?
Yeah, so these are retreats for people that are thinking about things like you were thinking about, like, hey, I want to make this song. This song has been stuck in my head, and
Yeah.
and we do like bespoke retreats. I do bespoke retreats where I help people develop their prompts, figure out what tools to use in order to bring those creations to life. Yeah.
Are they in person? Are you spending the day with somebody or is it in
Yep,
groups?
they're in
How does it
person.
work?
They're in person right for now. But of
Yeah.
course, with technology and of course with only so many hours in the day, they will for sure transition over
But
time.
I like for what it's worth, I really like that it is in person because I
Yeah,
don't know many people doing that, and it
yeah,
also feels very special that you're. It's like the theme throughout this conversation has been marrying two things and making them work side by side. So I
that's right.
like this. It's an AI tool. The tools are AI, but
Yep,
the human interaction is in person as long as you can keep up with that demand. And so
yep.
they spend part of a day with you and
Part of
you
a day
help
or a whole
them work
day.
through.
It could be a team, right? Like working with a team from a company that wants to like, hey, maybe they want to come up with the next device, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think
Yeah, yeah,
I would love to talk to you about that for
yeah.
some stuff that we're doing. That would be
Absolutely,
that's so
absolutely.
great. So they can anybody watching this can see that on your site. Say the site address again.
It's kimcarson.world.
KimCarson.world. Amazing. Anything else that we need to make sure people are understanding about AI and about their role with AI.
Yeah, the biggest thing for me is I am, not a dystopian person. I am also not a utopian person. There's a term
Yeah.
that I like to use called protopian, which is like
Oh,
we're gonna it's things are gonna be better. Maybe there will still be some issues, but things will be better. And I like to have people think about the world in that way, in not like, okay, every problem is gonna be solved because we that's just not the nature of the world. Like we know this, right? Or everything is gonna be dark and gloomy and awful. There will be some kind of homeostasis, some kind of balance. And so I offer that to you and everyone who's watching to start thinking about things in protopia. What does a protopia look like for you?
incredible,
Yeah.
incredible. Thank you so much. I can't wait to have another conversation with you in just a few weeks to see the most up-to-date things that are going on because this is moving
Yeah.
so fast and trying to give as much information as we can to my audience so that we can be in it, in the
Yes.
game, in the arena.
Yep. Yep. We need Janet. That's for sure.
Thanks. That's it.
All
That was
right.
fantastic, man. Good. So good. I'm so happy.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
I'm
Me
going to
too.
release this on Monday. My
Okay.
my episode with Callum Johnson, which is my last time speaking with Callum Johnson, it got like 300,000 views.
Oh,
My
wow.
episode with him is coming out Monday.
Oh,
It's
wow.
about AI.
Yay.
So I think I'm gonna release this one on Monday. So when people are
Oh,
coming from his one to me, they see this.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I wanted to talk to you too about I'm feeling like the push in terms of YouTube and like
Yes.
what do I need to know and how do I, yes,
That's
there's
one of the
all
things
sorts of things.
when I was saying, what do we do? And you say I'm talking loud, the YouTube is the pulpit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Pulpit. And I'm happy to help you with that. I have my YouTube studio, which we're
Yep.
taking 3 more people on if you want to join that. If not, with Inner Circle, you can just write to me anytime
Okay.
on text and say, okay, I'm ready to get started. What do I do first?
Okay.
And I can kind of go
Great.
back and I can give you some light help with it.
Okay.
The
Good.
studio does it for you. Like we do the editing and we do the thumbnails and we do all the stuff for you, so you
For
know
you.
exactly what to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah.
But with Inner Circle, we can work on it a little
Cool.
bit. Like I'm doing it
Yeah.
with Pam Yang right now, helping her with hers, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I was as someone introduced me, that was at a talk that I gave at I don't know if you know the Long Now Foundation,
Mm-mm.
but they are an old foundation that has been thinking during like the last 50 years, thinking about how we are good ancestors and we leave good ancestors
Yeah.
behind. And so I gave a talk about creativity and AI and like the time we're in, and they introduced me as the Oprah of AI, and I went,
Hey. Okay, well, so we need to
hey.
make that true then,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't even say like today, I I am not looking for anybody to put me on TV because
Yes.
YouTube is just totally a game changer. It's like as
Yeah.
big as AI to me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And you on YouTube, consistently with the right packaging,
Yep.
give it 2 months and you have thousands and thousands of people watching every video you put out.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
important.
It totally is.
Important. So I encourage you to text me about it
Okay.
so
I will do
we can
that.
get started on it. Okay, cool. And introduce me to the person who's doing the quantum stuff in LA.
Yes. I
Okay.
will definitely
Yeah.
introduce you to her.
Maybe, yeah,
She's
penis. Okay.
someone you should know.
Love it. Okay, good. All
All
right,
right.
cool. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.